Like to start our regular meeting of June 20th, 2024. Call to order. Pledge allegiance. Look, even me, I have my class. Hand over heart. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Commissioner Mercado.
Here. Or Chair.
Oh, sorry, Chair Mercado. Vice Chair Reese.
Here.
Commissioner Sarkia.
Here.
Commissioner Contreras.
Here. Do we have any reordering of the agenda?
We do not this evening.
Seeing none, we have start with our presentation, and we have a presentation to our outgoing commissioner, Laura Romano de Fazio. So you'd like to come up?
Last chance back here.
Uh-oh.
Come all
the way up? Okay.
We don't want to throw the
Camera.
goodies at you. Well, we want to thank you for all the time served. We appreciate all your effort and hard work you put into that, and we will certainly miss you. The city will really miss you.
Oh,
You're here.
Thank you. I would love to, thank you. Say that it's been an honor, a pleasure, an absolute delight to work with everyone on the commission. I will miss my Thursday evenings. Maybe I'll just drop in occasionally. But it's really been a wonderful experience, and thank you all for being part of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're lucky to have you.
Oh,
Yes, we're gonna miss you.
Approval minutes of the regular planning commission meeting of June 6, 2024. Do we have a motion?
I motion to approve.
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Public comments. We don't have any at this time. Consent calendar, none. No continued public hearings. New public hearings, none. Other business. Avenue of Flags Median 3 conceptual plans. Carol Morales will lead us with this.
Thank you, Chair Mercado, and good evening, Planning Commissioners. We have a very special and exciting presentation tonight for you. We'll pull up the PowerPoint here. We have conceptual plans for Median 3 on the Avenue of Flags. So, all right, you can go to the next. So Median 3 has been a vacant strip of grass in between the two traffic lanes on the avenue since the Avenue of Flags was Highway 101. And the Avenue of Flags specific plan lays out some guidance for the revisioning of the avenue into a vibrant downtown, and Median 3 is at the heart of this specific plan area. So just to point out a couple adjacencies, we have the Monteghetti's building to the west, Tonio's, Houston's Liquor, Hotel Higa to the east, and then the sites for the planned Creekside project and 518 project. To the north is Median 2, which is our public parking lot. And then the median, I'll just point out, is a parking lot, but it's planned to double as event space as well for farmers markets and car shows, things like that. And then to the south, we have Median 4, which has the Flag Plaza, the Veterans Memorial, and then that meandering landscaped path. Next slide. So a little background to where we have been. In 2017, the Avenue of Flags specific plan was adopted. And 2020, we worked with Cal Poly Landscape Architecture Studio class to present some design concepts to Planning Commission and the City Council. And we got some feedback from that. So the top 5 designs were included in tonight's packet for the links to those students' YouTube videos, and then the feedback was attachment 3 as well. Earlier in October of 2020, then the Creekside Village project was approved. Early 2021, median 2 was constructed. And then really since 2021, there's been a couple Fall Fest events, arts and culture projects like the Banner Project. March 2022, we had the 518 approved. And then in the last year, planning staff has been working with an intern hired to come up with 2 conceptual plans for median 3. Joanna Bruno, she's here tonight. So I'll introduce her later and she'll give a presentation as part of this PowerPoint of the actual conceptual plans, but I'm giving you a little background now. So the feedback that we got, again, was intended to come back at a future date with all the feedback that we received from those conceptual designs at the 2020 studio project and come back as we are doing today with a set of conceptual plans that kind of combined the desired elements and all the feedback from those conceptual plans into a more realistic design and pare it down into 2 plans with some variations that the planning commission could then bring feedback on that staff would take to city council in order for city council then to, make any tweaks that they wanted to the designs and then take that to construction drawings for median 3. And next slide. So the Avenue Flags specific plan gives guidance to median 3. And I'll just read the excerpt here. It's included in tonight's packet as well, but potential uses and building elements include a downtown park with open landscaped area, trees and drought-tolerant plantings, shade structures, seating areas, a landmark town plaza, public restrooms centrally located and easily accessible, an amphitheater, and family-friendly recreation. The following optional structures may be considered in the future, subject to funding availability and need. So a pavilion for a town plaza, community building containing a visitor center or historic museum or any other civil uses, a bandstand with shell and storage spaces or vendor kiosks, aesthetically designed and physical barriers such as bollards, landscape rows, raised planters, public art shall separate pedestrian areas from vehicle traffic. Outdoor plaza areas may have permanent and or temporary civic themed displays, such as a walk of flag or a Buellton beat, showcasing the aspects of Buellton's car culture. So again, the features that the Avenue Flags specific plan calls out for median 3 is a downtown park, a town plaza, amphitheater, public restrooms, shade structures, parallel and angled parking, lighting for evening events, and other, landscaping, fiber optics, potential visitor center, historic museum. Next slide. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Joanna to present her conceptual plans for us.
You can hear me there.
Yeah.
Is it supposed to be on? It was?
Have to speak right into the.
Right into it. Is that better?
No.
That's not on that. Okay.
Is it better? Yes.
That's better.
Okay, thank you.
There you go.
So I will have to turn this way. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm going to go over an overview of the 2 conceptual plans in 2D, and then we will go into each one in zoomed views. So I'll be mentioning the features as we go. In this aerial view, the 2-dimensional one, the features are allocated on each sides, the programs and features. And one thing to keep in mind are the examples, the little images at the bottom. And those are features that are going to be the same and different in two conceptual plans. One main one to look at right now is the style of the buildings. And this first concept would be following Art Deco, but a more colonial Art Deco look. The paving and path will also be different in the both concept with other differences. We can move on to the next slide for now. This is the current view, south elevation, and we can move to the next slide. And this is the first rendering for the first concept of the south elevation. In this view, we see at the south end, the town plaza with certain features like the soapbox for free speech and the flag display for the community. It is also allocated with lighting, in-ground lighting. It has this pattern, wave pattern resembling or reminiscing of the American flag, the waving flag. It has seating on the perimeter, vegetated area, drought tolerant, and all the vegetation in mind is city-approved trees. You see also ADA access at the crosswalks to connect from the neighboring businesses, residences. And then you also see on the left, which would be the civic center and the restrooms, or historic center and restrooms. In this variation, they are attached. On the right side, you see what would be the flex area. So an area for art, display of banners, also for the community. The seating is mainly Art Deco bench style, and you have movable tree planters on this version. The pavement on the paths is consistent on this example with median 2 and median 4 style, and it will be impermeable paving. At the far end, you see the flag, and on the right, you see what would be the vendor pop-ups. We will see them better in other slides. Those blue triangles are shade sails, and under them you would see picnic tables. You see a food truck. Food trucks would be on either side. And we can move on to the next slide because we'll see more features better. This is the north current elevation, and we can move to the next slide to see the first concept one with the north elevation view. So here we have dominating the north is the amphitheater with a concrete style, a little bit of a colonial roof tile to follow the civic or historic center. You have the storage facility, which would be attached to the amphitheater. All the furnishing on the concepts would be Art Deco style, like the street lamps, and located strategically for access areas and activities. Like for instance, where the ADA access is. We also have on this side bike racks. And then those triangles, you see now clearly the shade sails with the picnic tables. And on the left, because this is the open space, it is more designated for an amphitheater, play area, seating, picnic. You have what would be play structures, play sculptures. And you see anchoring the center, the flag. The flag anchors also sort of a transition between the open space and the activities like the vendors, the food trucks, and guiding towards the civic center as well. And we can go to the next slide. This is a close-up where you see a little better how the layout is for the bike racks. That logo on the left side that is embedded in the path was taken from a median 2 bike rack. So I made it the logo, Buellton logo. It could be bronze, and those materials would follow the soapbox and other features. You see the amphitheater with the backstage access there, the driveway for access to the amphitheater with retractable bollards. That bridge that you see on the other end there, that would go over a bioswale, which in this concept is me try to remember, is segmented on the median. It would be on the east side, but this one would be segmented with also planting in the bioswale for drought and wet plants. And we can go to the next slide. This is the west open space area, and we see a little bit more clearly. And to guide you from the view on the plan, those triangles will tell you which view you're looking at. And here we see a little bit more of the open space with the bridges and the benches. And decomposed granite everywhere under the seating and certain access areas. We can go to the next slide. Here we see the food trucks with the ADA access. This is the central part of the median, so access for businesses or residences on either side with the movable planters. And on the right side, we see the vendor. It could be vendor kiosks, pop-ups. And we can go to the next slide. And here, an example of the style for the civic center and the restrooms attached or historic center. And we have the flex area with the bridge that goes over the bioswale. And the display banners are actually hidden behind that tree, but they're on the left side, but they could be moved anywhere. And then we see the town plaza there with the benches and the flag display, and it would connect directly to the next median, the theme of the flags. And next slide. And here we have another view of the town plaza, what it might feel like to just walk towards it. Next slide. And now we have concept plan number 2, where I will start pointing out some differences. One of the difference that pops up is the color of the paving and materiality. So the differences between both plans will be materiality and location of amenities and style of buildings. Those are the main differences. The material here would be red brick for the path and also impermeable paving. The difference in the open space is a little narrow because on this concept, we have vegetated buffers on the edges of the median all around. And we can go to the next slide to see more detail. And then we have a view of the south elevation with the town plaza. Some variations with the town plaza could be the location of the soapbox and the flags. It could be oriented looking south or looking north, but pretty much similar. We have trash cans too, and lamps and bench seating, also ADA access. One of the big differences with access here is you see those bulb outs, which add more protection for pedestrian and buffer. And if they're vegetated, they can bring a lot of aesthetic to the median. And we see the difference with the buildings where here they are detached, the civic or historic building and the restrooms, and a different style. It's an Art Deco style that's more like a white stucco and black trim or black molding and bigger windows to look in. The flex area on the right is also slightly different. We'll see it better in another image. It doesn't have the movable planters. Instead, it has another option, which would be seated walls, seated planters. And we can go to the next slide to see. We also have the north view here. And one thing I would like to mention with the bike lanes on the first, we have the existing painted bike lanes that are now located on the road. In this option, we have concrete planted bike lanes as a greater buffer area and protection for cyclists and pedestrians. And here the amphitheater is also following that Art Deco white stucco or white concrete styled with black trim, and also with a storage unit attached. And we can go to the next slide. And in here we see a closer view of the amphitheater, this same driveway to access for trucks to access their equipment to the storage unit with retractable bollards. We see the play sculptures, benches all around the perimeter. And on the other side, we can see more how the bioswale in this option goes completely from north to south. It's not segmented. So there will also be more bridges on this concept because you also have bridges on both sides to go over the buffer, vegetated buffer that is alongside the entire median as an option. And we can go to the next slide. Here we see more of the open space with those play structures or play sculptures, picnic areas with shade sails. So the shading for both concepts is combined between trees, city-approved trees, and shade sails. And next slide. And here we have again the flag that anchors a little bit that transition between the open space and the activities, the vendors, the food trucks, which are in the same location as well. And we have the vendors and picnic tables and seating, the trees, and we have here the restroom, and we can see more clearly how it's segmented or detached, and we have another pathway from the parking areas. There's several ADA access as well. And next slide. And here we see the flex area for art display, also for banner display or panels. And you see those white rectangles with a little wood in front. Right there, yes, that is the seat wall. It can be vegetated. Some have trees and wood benches, and the bioswale that continues there. And next slide. And here we see again the town plaza as it would look with this version. Again, the flag display for the community and the soapbox, also seating and in-ground lighting, and the Art Deco lighting throughout. And one thing I want to mention is the signage. Those little black signs on either side is a wayfinding signage that is currently on the median, but could be adapted to mention and point out to the features that are on the medians. Next slide. And yes, that was the presentation for the designs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joanna. So with that, the recommendation for tonight is that the Planning Commission provide comments for the conceptual plans that were just presented. Guidance for median 3 identified in the specific plan should be considered, as well as feedback on the previous designs. And then also the Planning Commission could consider future programming for the median as well. And I'll turn it over to Chair Mercado for any questions for staff or Joanna.
Thank you for your presentation to begin with. Does we have any questions for Kara first of all?
Not specifically, no.
Okay.
I did have,
You go.
no, go ahead.
Okay, I noticed in the renderings versus the 2D representation, that the version with the more traditional Art Deco style buildings, this second version, is shown with the warmer paving
Mhm.
in the 2D, but in here it's more of the cooler colors.
For the paving itself,
Yeah, or the permeable pavers that go through the park. The gray.
can you show me the 2D?
Yeah, like
This
oh.
is the concept 2.
yes, and
Oh, that
how
was,
it's
yes, that is an option that you can or cannot do. So I gave the option in the 2D plan, not in the rendering, but it is something that can be done as well. Yeah,
thank you.
you're welcome.
My question is the Civic Center a requirement?
That is what was envisioned for median 3 at this particular location. Yes, as part of the specific plan.
And then I did notice another question, if you're good, Daniel.
Yeah.
Okay, that in the 2D, they show a retractable bollard here, and it's like kind of a stainless steel color. Have you considered maybe like an antique bronze or like a?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that, and I think in the 2D, it is actually an antique bronze. If we look at I don't know if there's another slide that shows it better, but if you look at the bottom part of the retractable bollard, I don't know if we can zoom in, but it is a bronze. I think what happens is the lighting with the rendering, there's a kind of like a sunlight effect, and it might reflect as stainless steel, but they were selected, they're the same material as the logo, the embedded copper logo, and the bike racks, they're all consistent materials.
Lovely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The amphitheater, seems like one looked bigger than the other, or is that just?
It's
Back or
possible, it's possible, I think I made them all the same size. Can we go back to the other one?
Yeah.
It could be the white,
Okay,
but there's only materiality that I've changed, but the building sizes are the same.
the footprints is,
Yeah, the footprint's the same, yeah.
and the position using consideration to sun down.
That's a good question. I'm not sure about that. Sundown, yeah,
It was initially.
yeah.
It seems like you're facing sundown, like from the stage. the top of the
Yeah.
stage.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, I, with,
Yeah.
yeah, it's possible with the 5 preferred staff comments. So I selected some features, and that was one of the orientation of that happened to be in that selection. And so I thought it made sense. Also, another reason for the positioning is
Yeah.
walking around. The positioning the path and being able to walk from the path to the open space. So there's a little bit of both.
One of the, sorry, Shannon. One of the city council comments, and I think in the specific plan as well, the topography of the median was taken into consideration so that the seating would be above, but that's a good
That's
point with the sun. Yeah.
That-
Mhm.
Rose, was that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
that's exactly it. I mean, it's, you can't tell in the renderings, but there's a definite grade and slope, side, between east and west side as well. So,
Right, because you're on the higher grading.
Yes,
So that's
Right.
why I'm.
yeah, so they're really kind of, we're trying to make use of the grade, not have to fill, and then we have another structure that's standing up and standing out. So that's the unfortunate part of that.
Okay.
I have a quick question about the potential future art area and the bathroom, more a general question for both. And this could be for staff too, I'm not sure. Is there a reason that you wanted it on one frontage versus like or maybe it's a design consideration? It's just.
yeah, no particular reason. Maybe I was looking more at the residential view as opposed to the business view, but there's access from both sides. And I was also looking at people in the building and the experience of being there. And what do you do when you go out, like facing their seating that's positioned. If we go to the slides where the civic center and the restroom are, there's, if you look on the right, there's seating, and there's a little space, little grass space, and that's a little nook if people are in the building to go to, and you have access to the flex area. So it's an access consideration from the perspective of being in the building and going onto the medium.
Got it.
Does that make sense? But it could be on either side. You're right. Yeah, and the flex area as well. It could be on either side.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I just had a few notes. I think, I like both designs, but I think there should be more of an impact, especially if you're coming in from the north or passing by on 246. I'd like to see an archway, probably on both sides, so that people look over and they go, oh, what's over there? And use that bronze logo as a centerpiece on the arches. Also, I'd like to see that logo on the restroom and any other buildings that are there, the civic center, to help give it, oh, look at that,
Mhm.
effect. And because we want to go with this Art Deco, that's where we need to make the biggest statement to go with, I think, for this city. A few other notes were, I'd like to see a pond or a pool
Mhm.
in the design. What else did I have? Is I like the lighter granite, but is that loose or is that
Granite, decomposed granite?
is it
No,
solid?
it's thought of as compacted,
Okay,
compacted.
yeah,
Yeah, not.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I need to see wheelchair
Mhm.
access
Mhm.
and not loose gravel.
Yeah.
Um, And the amphitheater, those are granite benches, so they're permanent?
So they're permanent.
Yes.
They're thought of as concrete, but they can
Uh-huh.
be granite. I mean,
Okay.
something that withstands weather,
Yeah,
heat, cold, and low maintenance.
yeah, much like we have over at the River Park. It's smaller, but it's permanent. I like that idea.
Mhm.
And those are the notes I had for now. Thank you.
Mhm. You're welcome.
I had concerns with the DG, especially during the winter months,
Mhm.
because no matter how compacted it gets, it dissolves.
Okay.
So I think the pavers are gonna be less expensive because you don't have to replace them.
Mhm.
And my other concern was the bioswale.
Yes.
Uh, I just think you're opening yourself up to some liability. You have kids, you know, they get loose. And so I would think that even though it's great for the environment and stuff like this, you have to think long-term, what would the liability for the
Yeah.
city would be?
Mhm.
And then the same thing with the seated planters,
Mhm.
because you see what happens in Santa Barbara and some other cities that they homeless people kind of congregate and they tear them up, and it's just the expense of
here.
having to
Yeah.
maintain. And I think we need to look at the maintenance factor on
Mhm.
anything that we do.
Mhm.
And then the question was the restrooms just on the one side. And I know in our first conceptual, we talked about having on both sides.
Mhm.
Um, and just the size of them, I mean.
I have the size, yeah, if
Okay,
you want
so
to
is it
know.
2 stalls, 1 stall?
Oh, I think it's
Because
for more than two stalls or more. Let me see here. I have the size. One thing to keep in mind as well is the dimensions of the median. It's actually not that big. So if you end up putting two restrooms, you minimize, I did put two restrooms at first. The open space was minimal.
Right,
And so that's something to consider, and it can be with
Right.
restroom or not. But let me get.
because there is no public restrooms now.
Right.
And, just if you go to Solvang and the one by the park that only has 2 stalls in there, you might as well take your
Yeah.
number and hope you get in there for the next half hour, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
The thing is, yes, we could put another restroom on the next meeting that we develop or whatever, but this one is going to be the one that's gonna have the most activity.
Mhm.
So I think if we plan for the future and for the most bang for our buck, we would want to add a
A
second.
second one.
Yeah,
So this one has, it's 25 by 20 with a height of 17 or higher.
right.
So I think that's at least 2 stalls or more.
Yeah.
It's
have two
25 by
stalls,
20.
One semi-ambulatory or
Yes, definitely ambulatory. Yeah, I have it on my files, the one I copied. I copied one
They all have to
existing.
be
Yeah,
ADA now,
yeah.
so.
But the other thing is, yeah, with the amphitheater, it would help to have a second restroom next to
Right.
the amphitheater
Well,
because it's
that
a
and
distance.
The other space that you're having, whether it's the food trucks
Yep.
or art centers or whatever,
Mhm.
you're just gonna have
Yeah.
more traffic
Sure.
and you
That's
want to be
true.
able to
Yeah.
make it. And then my only other concern, I'm a big fan for trees, shrubberies and stuff like that. And as many native plants as we can. But no matter what we put in there, they still have to be maintained,
Mhm. Yeah.
whether once a year, twice a year, and sometimes because of the traffic, they have to be maintained multiple times. And so whatever we do put in there, have some sense of, okay, maintenance wise, okay, is this gonna last 2 events
Mhm.
or 1 event?
All right, mhm.
So,
And the ones that are there, they're on the city approved list. They're also the lower water requirement, except for one which was low to moderate, but you still have to, of course, water until they're established and then,
Right.
yeah, maintain for
Yeah.
sure.
and even, well, even then, the salvias and all that, if you want them to look pretty, they don't have to be
Yeah.
cut back
Yeah.
twice a year.
The one that maybe needs less is the the rush that's on the bioswale
Right.
because those are drought and wet.
Right.
Mhm.
But then you just, like I said, you just don't, I mean, if you look at the one in front of the Lompoc Hospital,
Mm.
the amount of people who've taken their bikes and stuff into them.
Yeah.
So it's kind of defeated the purpose of having the
Mhm.
bioswale
Yeah.
to do what it's supposed to do.
Well, something that, when I came to visit the median, they were watering the median and a lot of the water was ending up on the road.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so one thing that I noticed is if you do have a bioswale there or somewhere where it slopes towards that east end, when you water it, the water will not end up on the street. So you reduce runoff. And my son actually plays in bioswale. He just goes in all of them, but some are safer than others, for
Right.
sure. This one is thought of as one that you can just step over, and there are many variations. You have some that have little rocks, plants, and you can actually step over, but a low, a low depth. Yeah.
Perhaps our Public Works Director might be able to speak to, are there any alternatives for bioswales? Because due to the topography of the median, there is going to be a lot of runoff and stormwater management is going to be required.
Yeah, what we've done in the median above, we have underground,
French
yeah,
drain.
drains, and we have storage underneath,
Right.
so that's the option as well.
And that might be the best one. I mean,
Right.
hopefully, because now we're cutting down the grass by at least a third. And so there's more efficient sprinklers now today than they were than when that was planted. And so we just, those were my big concerns. Otherwise, other than that, I think it's a great project. I've always looked forward to that being both
Thank you.
looking at it from original planning commission, then again on as city council. So the more Art Deco we have, because we've made the statement that we wanted to be Art Deco. So if we can do something, because this is what the city would like and what we want to do, then hopefully that when 518 and some of these others get developed, they follow the concept. And so we need to be the leaders on that. So I think that's what we're going to. But before we leave, do we have any other questions?
I'd like to follow up on the restroom. We go to the Solvang market every Wednesday and sometimes there's a pretty good crowd there. Like this week they had music in the park as
Right,
well as
started.
the farmer's market. And I always take my grandkids and somebody always has to use the restroom. And what they have is the men's room and a women's room. And then in the middle of that, they have a universal room. So yeah, I found it to be adequate, although it seemed small. It was like 2 or 3 people in line at the worst that I've seen. And I found it again to be adequate. And the concern with kids in water or pond or whatever, I noticed over at the Civic Center in Lompoc, they have a very shallow, it's concrete, but it's a shallow, what do you call it? The water goes up, and the kids can just run in there and run out, get wet and cool off, but they're not going to drown. The water like ends up with about maybe 4 or 6 inches deep. So we might go that route where it's very water but shallow.
Yeah.
That's what I had.
Long-term maintenance, though.
Yeah. Con-
The cost.
Yeah. Yeah. Water's maintenance.
Daniel, did you have, I've only gotten to my questions. Did you have comments also?
Irene comments?
That was my question too.
No, if we have more questions, then we'll open it up, bring it back to us for comments and see. Unless you have any further questions.
Um,
I don't have any further questions.
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to thank you for all you've obviously considered this at length and spent a lot of time on it. And I think you have a lot to be proud of. So
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you.
No comments, then we'll bring it back to, or
Already
no
said
more
was
questions, we'll bring it back to
redesign.
comments. Daniel?
My only comments is that, I know we're leaning towards, this development at the planning commission of this art deco, but also what type of art deco, because I feel like I don't want to get to a point where we're mishmashing even our art deco, like, I want some synergy, and I kind of see that happening here. So what we put in place or what we recommend, I hope it's leading everybody else to kind of follow suit. There's some other projects since I've been here that kind of, even though there are deco, they're gonna seem to clash. And I want the city to kind of have a more unified look, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Starting with here, this is a very central local point. I could see how we could have the Buellton Christmas tree lighting, how concerts at the park, like we're heading that way with this conceptual design here. So I just want to make sure that, what we put in place, one, maintenance wise, doesn't accelerate our costs, especially for public works and other services like that. I'm a big fan of bioswales, and there's different types of bioswales, and you made a good point of how it catches off the runoff. And as a city, we have to be aware of stuff like that because we could get fined for too much excessive runoff. So like that, it captures that, brings it back to the water table. And obviously there's different types of valleys of bioswales that you mentioned and I've experienced. So good concept. I'm not too sure about the Civic Center yet, but if it's something we're trying to implement, I like a gathering place, but I also like the open space. So I have to look a little bit more into that, see what our specific plan really defines in that. I hate to lose more ground or more open space. And then my only other concern that I had or my comment is traffic. How's this gonna impact traffic? Is there any concerns with that? Are we gonna cause a bottleneck of any sorts? But other than that, it's a great concept. This is exciting. It's a big thing for Buellton. It's a gathering place that we're here to lead into. So thank you for that, for your efforts. Other than that, I'm excited to see how it comes back.
Russell?
Oh, thank you. I already made pretty much my comments. I do like your design, and you've incorporated a lot of elements, and we really appreciate it, and the college kids as well. Thank you.
I think it's a unique challenge to have to take a bunch of other people's ideas and then somehow bring them together and then get a bunch of opinions on those ideas is a challenge. I have a couple thoughts. I think the use of the logo at both ends is really clever. I really liked that element. In general, from a design standpoint of had I prefer the second concept to the colonial art deco. I had some reservations about that because it's not very contemporary, and the other art deco that we've seen is more contemporary. So, and I sent Andrea a picture of something. I think that it reads more like a kind of a classic administrative building, but still has some really neat art deco detailing. Let's see. In the second design, I also really appreciate the emphasis on alternative transportation. the little buffers around the pedestrian entry points, and then also the planters to protect the bike lanes, I think is a really neat idea. I think one consideration about the planters in particular is that we often have like an open street event, or we have had open street events where they kind of utilize that whole space for booths, and I'm thinking of the bike one in particular, ironically enough, but that, you know, we just have to think about, well, when we close off that street, what space would we use and how would we use it if we're gonna pursue the planter idea? But I do like the concept of protecting the bike lanes. Let's see. I definitely prefer the lighter permeable pavers with the Art Deco design. I mean, or the second Art Deco design, I should say. If the colonial Art Deco design was the direction we went, then I think the warmer colors, like the warm red and brown pavers, make more sense because of the tile roofs and such. But when you have like a cooler color palette in the buildings, I think I prefer the more neutral, cooler toned pavers. Let's see. I appreciate the incorporation of the bioswales and swales, and I see what Rose was saying, especially about the runoff and the natural topography of that area. I think the access points that you have in the second, I think it's the second design, are probably more realistic to implement. Like fewer bridges and more of a truncated bioswale. Like, you know, you have a couple, but they're spaced out so that you can have like a traditional curb cut. So otherwise, I'm not familiar with what the requirements are when you have an entry point into the right of way. But I think you might have some accessibility issues and you might have to have a curb there. I think it could be tricky and present some like unanticipated consequences. Let's see. I think the other comments I have are about the structure. I mean, it sounds really neat, the art program and the funding that potentially comes with that. Sounds like a really neat opportunity. And one thing I liked about the second design in particular was that the restroom buildings were detached. So it opens up possibilities with the museum building design to be more interesting. You have more sides of the structure to play with. I did have a thought that it would be nice to have, and perhaps you already have or have contemplated it, like an arcade in the rear of this when you come out of the structure. I know you're limited in width, but that it might be nice if there was an arcade or some sort of shade element to the museum, so there could be an outdoor component to that too, especially if we're thinking about a place where there could be like bulletins and that could be a nice space. It gets hot here in the summer. And then one last thought too is that, you know, if the Civic Center / museum structure was rotated, I understand that you're trying to bring a central path through and then split off, and it directs people. It's a wayfinding thing, and it brings the focal point to the open space and everything. But if you were to rotate it, you'd have more width, and then you could potentially, you'd have 3 frontages as well. And then you could potentially put the restrooms and maybe fit more of them along the back. It's just a thought. I understand there are considerations for keeping a single frontage too. Yeah, and then that would also give you the opportunity to kind of hide those restroom buildings in the rear, but still make them accessible for the people coming from the open space. But overall, I think you did a really nice job. It's
Thank you.
hard to amalgamate all of those ideas into something cohesive, so I appreciate it.
I just wanted to thank you again. I think
You're
it was a great job. I agree with Shannon. Getting 14 million views is hard to decipher to get 4 or 5 good ones. I agree with her on the second Art Deco. I just think from when we look at the projects that are hopefully gonna get built. I mean, those have already been approved, so they already have, 518 is already know what they, so they'll contrast with what you're trying to do here. So I think, you know, because of the specific plan, the way it's stated, this is going to be an awesome project for you. You think I did an outstanding job. Like I said, the only concern with the bioswale is just the liability issue. We do have the French drains, they're low maintenance, don't cost much. That way we do have, if to add a second bathroom or something else to help that project on. And I do hope that we do get the funding. I think that'd be a big plus because hopefully that'll get us kickstarted to go on with this project. So whatever we have to do as a city to keep that in mind, we can go forward. Like I said, you did an outstanding job.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you,
Thank you.
Kara, as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I didn't do this work alone. Kara and Andrea, we were in communication all the time and the feedback was appreciated from everyone, and it was a work and teamwork. Thank you.
Okay. We have any written communications?
None this evening. Sorry.
Planning Commissioner comments? Here on the dais, do we have anything? No? Then I would like to welcome Claire's replacement, Mr. Devin de Blasio, to his first meeting. We look forward to having you here and working with you and you working with us.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
May I have, as a member of the public, make just a question, clarification?
Sure.
I apologize, but you said impermeable. I just want to verify.
Yes.
Is it?
They're permeable,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
It's there, it's permeable.
I just thought that, I just wanted.
I know what you meant.
But it's just permeable in the paper, so I figured that was just.
Well, I have not figured that for obvious reasons.
You're always good at details.
And then our-
Well, if I was a good citizen, I would have read it, but I apologize. Thank you.
Our planning director report.
Yeah, just really briefly, you took one of my items, so thank you, because I have a very little voice this evening. So I also just, last meeting, I thought it may have been Claire's last meeting, but turns out it's tonight. So just wanted to thank Claire again for all of her hard work on the planning commission as the planning commission secretary over all these years. So we'll miss her. So
Bye, Claire.
And a quick question for
Sure.
you. At our council meeting last week, there was a issue, not so much an issue, an amendment brought up on what direction the planning commission was going to go to. You got
yeah,
any-
so that item was not discussed at council last week. It was tabled for a future meeting, I believe, this upcoming council meeting. So, yeah, we'll see where that discussion goes, next week at council.
Okay,
Yep.
See no other inference?
Oh, okay,
Go ahead.
I got an email today or yesterday. I don't always look at them every day. But the state of the city address is coming soon in a couple of weeks.
July 11th.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's gonna be a breakfast instead of a lunch. So, cool.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Close the meeting 6:55.